My name is Caleb Voss, and for most of my life I was the disappointment of the family. Not because I failed, but because I dared to want something different. I was 26 when I landed an $18 million deal with Vanguard Equity Group. But that moment didn't start in a boardroom. It started in the backyard of my childhood home, standing next to my father, Henry Voss, while he flipped burgers and ignored the sound of my dreams dying. In Des Moines, Iowa, men like him are built from calluses, sunburns, and pickup trucks that outlive marriages. He ran a landscaping company for 30 years, built it from a second-hand lawnmower and a borrowed truck. He believed that real work meant sweat scars and a tan earned from 12-hour days not tanning beds. So when I chose finance over fertilizer, I became something less than a son to him. I still remember the day I told him I got into the University of Illinois for data science. He handed me a $50 bill and said, "Don't come back empty-handed." That was his way of saying goodbye. My mother, Margaret, waited until he left the room, then tucked an envelope in my bag. Inside, $500, she'd been saving from her job at the library. She didn't say much. She just looked me in the eyes and said, "Make something that means something to you." And so I did. I wasn't the smartest student in the program, but I was the most obsessed. In sophomore year, I built a prototype algorithm that could analyze stock movements based on behavioral sentiment. Basically, it read people at scale. A professor pulled me aside one day after class. "You could change the way normal people invest," he said. I dropped out 6 months later. That's when the silence began. Not between me and the world, but between me and my father. I called to explain. Mom cried. Dad hung up. No good luck, no visit, no interest. For 2 years, I coded through Holiday's $8 ramen while my roommates ordered pizza and pitched my idea to 27 venture capitalists. 27. Every one of them said no. Too young, too risky, too theoretical. Each rejection I printed out, taped to my bedroom wall. Not for motivation, but as a reminder of who didn't believe in me. Except for Liam Chen, my freshman roommate. He brought me food when I forgot to eat. Proofread my investor decks. And every time I was one email away from giving up, he'd say, "You're not building a product, Caleb. You're building a future no one can see yet." He saw me, even when my own father didn't. Last Thanksgiving, I made the mistake of going home. I brought a simple gift for my dad, a custom leather wallet engraved with his initials. He looked at it, chuckled, and said, "You know what I really need? A manager who can run irrigation without screwing it up." Then he laughed with his contractor buddies. I laughed too weakly. But inside something cracked. That night, I overheard him in the garage talking to my uncle on speakerphone. "Caleb will be back by summer," he said. "That boy couldn't sell firewood to an Eskimo. Too much brain, not enough grit." I didn't confront him. I just listened. Then I helped clean the dishes, said goodnight to Mom, and drove 3 hours back to my apartment. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just opened my laptop and worked through the night on the pitch deck for a meeting that, unbeknownst to him, would change everything. 3 weeks later, I got an email. Subject exclusive, tech licensing inquiry. Vanguard Equity Group, offer, 18,000 scope. Full acquisition of proprietary prediction, algorithm, effective term 10 years. I read it 11 times. The zeros looked foreign. So did my name beside them. The first person I called was Liam. He screamed. I think I lost hearing in my left ear for a full minute. Then I called my mom. She cried again. But this time it sounded like breathing, after almost drowning. I didn't call my dad, not out of spite, out of clarity. The next day, I flew to Chicago to sign the agreement. We closed the deal in a glass building that overlooked Lake Michigan. Afterwards, Samantha Trujillo, the CEO of Vanguard, raised her glass. "To clarity and chaos," she said. I smiled, but all I could think about was my father's voice. "You're not built for success, son." That night in my hotel room, I stared at the ceiling and felt nothing. No pride, no vengeance, just quiet. And I knew exactly what I had to do next. I didn't buy the Porsche because I'd always wanted one. I bought it because I needed a message my father couldn't talk over, something he couldn't ignore. Something louder than words, because words with him never worked. It was a silver Taycan, fully electric, quiet, fast, controlled. The opposite of every conversation I ever had with Henry Voss. When I stepped into that dealership wearing jeans and a t-shirt, the sales rep barely looked up. Until I mentioned I was working with a budget of around $150,000. Suddenly I was someone. 2 hours later, I drove out title in hand. I didn't call ahead, didn't tell my mother, didn't check to see if my father would even be there. But I knew, Labor Day. That was the event. Every year he held this massive barbecue in our backyard. Clients, contractors, old friends. It was his way of reminding everyone he was still the king of landscaping in Des Moines. He'd stand at the grill in his faded flannel and calloused hands, flipping burgers and telling stories about how he built something from nothing. What he never said, what no one knew, was that the business was drowning, margins cut, chains expanding, clients defecting. But Henry Voss never let anyone see him sweat, not even when his kingdom was crumbling. I timed my arrival for 2 p.m., right when the backyard would be full, not to cause a scene, to make a point. When I turned onto our street, windows were already open, laughter and music spilling out. A dozen cars parked along the curb. I pulled into the driveway. The Taycan purred beneath me, but its presence roared louder than any V8. I parked it next to my father's beloved 2006 Dodge Ram, the same one he used to drive me to school and back when we still talked. As I stepped out, I could feel the silence spreading across the yard. One by one, heads turned. Conversations stalled. Drinks paused mid-sip. There I was in a simple button-up and dark jeans, holding nothing but the keys to a future I'd built without anyone's help. My mother stood near the porch, hand rising slowly to her mouth. Uncle Jack squinted like I was a hallucination. My father, still by the grill, spatula in hand, mouth slightly parted. He recovered quickly, of course. He always does. "Well, look who decided to show up," he said loudly, forcing a grin. Clapped me on the back a little too hard. "Whose car did you borrow, son? That one of those rideshare apps?" A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. The kind of laughs people give when they're not sure who's safe to offend. "I didn't borrow it," I said calmly. "It's mine. Bought it yesterday." He raised his eyebrows, then nodded slowly. Must be nice to have rich friends with trust funds. I pulled the title from my back pocket and handed it to him. He unfolded it, read it, then refolded it with clinical precision. "Must be real lucky to find someone who buys into your little tech thing," he said, turning back to the grill. "Grab a plate. Your mom made her famous potato salad." The rest of the afternoon felt like walking through syrup. Every time I tried to start a real conversation with him about the deal, the algorithm, the opportunity, he changed the subject. Landscaping bids, mulch orders, the neighbor's new fescue lawn. When one of his longtime clients, Pete Reynolds, asked me about the Wall Street Journal article, my father interrupted immediately. "Don't believe everything you read," he said. "Journalists like to exaggerate. Caleb's got some app that guesses what the stock market's going to do next." Then he laughed. People followed. I smiled politely, nodded, but inside I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Just clear. That night, after the last guest left, and the cool Iowa wind began to roll in, I found him in his office, the converted garage with filing cabinets older than me. He was, as always, doing paperwork, manual invoices, stacked folders. "Dad," I said, knocking gently, "we need to talk about what's next." He didn't look up. "There's nothing to talk about." "There is. The company, your company, it's bleeding. I've been running numbers. You've got 6 months before cash flow collapses." Still no eye contact. Still no acknowledgement. "You got lucky, Caleb," he said at last. "Made some money pushing numbers on a screen. That doesn't make you special." "It wasn't luck. It was work. Just not the kind you respect." Finally, he looked at me. Eyes like ice. "You know what built this family? 40 years of sweat. Real work. Not some overpriced laptop and internet dreams." He pointed to a picture on the wall. Him, aged 20, standing in front of a rusted mower and a rented truck. "That's what success looks like," he said. "And what I built?" I asked. He leaned in. "I have seen your type before. Flash in the pan. You'll blow through that cash in a year. And then you'll be back here begging me to save you. And I'll have to explain to every contractor in this town why my son couldn't hack it in the real world." I didn't argue. I just stood there, let the weight of it all settle, then walked out. In the kitchen, my mom was drying dishes. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "He's proud of you," she said softly. "He just doesn't know how to show it." I shook my head. "No, Mom, he's not proud. He's scared." She didn't deny it, didn't defend him. She just whispered, "Then be patient. He's always been afraid of things he doesn't understand." I kissed her forehead, promised I wouldn't disappear again, and left. The next morning, I got a call. Noah, my cousin, the only person in the family who ever really supported me from day one. "Uncle Henry's telling people you lied," he said. "He's saying you rented the car, that the deal's fake, that you're in legal trouble with New York." Something cold settled into my stomach. Not rage, not betrayal. Certainty. This wasn't just about pride anymore. This was a man trying to erase my name before it got too loud to ignore. He'd drawn the line, and now I was going to cross it quietly, strategically, and in full daylight. In the next part, you'll see how I decided to deal with the betrayal, not with confrontation, but with something far more powerful. A plan. Stay with me. This story isn't done. There's a specific kind of silence that follows betrayal. It's not loud. It doesn't scream. It just sits inside you, heavy and still, like fog that never burns off. After Noah's call, the truth started pouring in from all sides. Liam texted me that my dad had stopped by our old apartment, asked strange questions, wanted to know how much I made, where the money was going, who had really signed the deal. Then my Aunt Mel called. "He's saying you're being sued," she whispered. "Said you embarrassed the family. Is everything okay?" Even Samantha, yes, the CEO of Vanguard herself, emailed me. "Hi, Caleb. Just a quick note, someone claiming to be your father called our office this morning. He asked for details about your deal. Don't worry, we didn't disclose anything. Just wanted to give you a heads up." I stared at the screen, then closed my laptop. This wasn't insecurity, this was sabotage. My father wasn't just embarrassed by my success, he was trying to rewrite it. I needed answers, and I knew who had them. That afternoon, I drove back to the house. I timed it so my father would be out on a job, maybe. My mother let me in. She looked tired. Not just physically, emotionally, like she'd been carrying something heavy and was finally ready to set it down. "I made coffee," she said quietly, setting the mugs on the table. "Mom," I said, "what's going on with Dad?" She hesitated, fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve. "He's scared, Caleb," she said finally, "more than you realize." "Scared of what? That his son succeeded?" "No," she said, "scared that you're right, that the world is changing, that there's no place in it for people like him anymore." I stayed silent, let her keep going. "The business is in trouble," she admitted. "Has been for years. New companies are offering packages he can't compete with. Younger crews, better equipment, cheaper rates." My stomach twisted. All those years he spent mocking me, belittling me, dismissing what I was building. He was doing it while his own world was collapsing. "Why didn't he tell me?" I asked. "Pride," she said simply. "The same pride that built the company is the same thing that's keeping him from accepting help." She looked up at me, her voice softer now. "To him, admitting you were right would mean everything he did was wrong." That night, I sat alone in my hotel room. Outside downtown Des Moines, shimmered with streetlights and late-night traffic. Inside, my mind was racing. I didn't want revenge, not really. I didn't want to humiliate him or destroy what he built. But I couldn't let him keep poisoning the air around my name either. There had to be a way not to beat him, but to absorb him. The next day, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Uncle Ron, my father's younger brother, and co-owner of Voss Outdoor Works. We met at a quiet diner near the interstate. Middle booth. Coffee already waiting. "You know why I called?" I said. He nodded. Didn't argue. 3 years ago, he said, Henry remortgaged the house. Bought 3 new trucks, upgraded all the tools. Tried to outpace Greenscape's expansion. But they're too big, too fast, too connected. He can't keep up. And he knows it. I exhaled. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because yesterday, Ron said he asked me if you'd be willing to invest. Not partner, not advise. Invest." I froze. "He's finally willing to take money from the kid with the app, huh?" Ron smiled sadly. "He believes in what you've done, Caleb. He just doesn't know how to admit it." I stared at my coffee. Let the bitterness sink in. This man had dismissed me, insulted me, told the world I was a fraud. And now he wanted my help. Not because he respected me, but because he had no other option. I had a decision to make. I could walk away, let his business collapse, let him taste the consequences of his pride. Or I could take control of the narrative, not to save him, but to reclaim my place in this story, to write the ending myself. That night I made 3 calls. First, Samantha at Vanguard. "I need research," I said. "Landscaping companies in the area. Who's expanding, who's ripe for acquisition, and who's already watching Voss Outdoor Works." She didn't ask why, just said, "Give me 24 hours. Second, a commercial real estate agent I'd met at a networking event. "I need warehouse space. Something central. Big enough for a team of 30 with room to grow." He sent me 6 listings within the hour. Third, Noah. "COO," I said. What he laughed. "Caleb, I've never run anything." "Neither had I said. "But you've always believed in what I'm building, and I need someone I can trust." By the end of the week, I had everything I needed. Jimimias. A signed lease on a 12,000 square foot industrial space near the river. A full acquisition offer from Greenscape Midwest Holdings, the biggest landscaping company in the region. A new LLC Stratoscope Analytics based in Des Moines, built on the algorithm that started everything. And an executive team made up of people who never doubted me, including Noah, including Liam. The offer to Greenscape was simple: buy out Voss Outdoor Works for $1.8 million, nearly double its paper value. In return, retain all employees. Give Henry a 5-year contract as regional manager. Let him keep his legacy, his dignity, and his crew. Everyone wins. Everyone except his ego. I didn't respond to his messages. Didn't show up to the dinner he invited me to. Instead, I walked into his office one afternoon, just like he used to walk into mine, unannounced, uninvited, and with purpose. He was seated at his desk, surrounded by unpaid invoices and last month's contracts. He looked up, jaw tight. "So, you finally decided to show up." I said nothing. Just placed the folder on his desk. "What's this?" he asked. "Your big investment pitch." "No," I said. "It's an offer. Greenscape wants to buy Voss Outdoor Works. They'll keep the team. You'll stay on as manager. Your legacy stays intact, and your debts go away." He stared at me. "You went behind my back." "No," I said evenly. "I went ahead of you, because you weren't moving." He stood slowly. "You think I'm going to sell my life's work to some corporate shark because you brought a shiny contract? I think I said you already know you're out of time. This deal saves your name." Then I reached into my jacket and placed a small metal key on the desk. He glanced at it. "What's this? Another insult?" "No, it's the key to the Taycan. It's yours." "I don't want your charity," he said. "It's not charity. It's an advance." I paused at the door, looked back. "You have 48 hours. After that, Greenscape calls your competitors." Then I walked away. That night I didn't sleep. I waited. For a call, a message, a decision. None came. Until morning. When my mom texted, "He drove the car this morning." Didn't say a word, but he drove it. And just like that, the fog began to lift. I didn't expect him to sign it. Not at first. Even after everything, the Porsche keys on his desk, the numbers staring him in the face, the silence from his old clients, I still thought he'd find a way to hold on. That's who Henry Voss was. He'd rather lose everything than admit he was wrong. So when my phone lit up with a notification from Greenscape's executive office 2 mornings later, "Subject deal in principle confirmed. Henry Voss has accepted offer. Preliminary contracts to follow." I just sat there, staring at it. Not relieved, not victorious. Just still. I didn't go to the signing. I could have. I'd been invited. Greenscape even asked if I wanted to give a short speech. But it wasn't about me. This wasn't a parade. It was a passing of a torch Henry never wanted to give away. Instead, I watched from across the street, parked in my car engine off windows rolled down. The conference room blinds were drawn halfway. But I could see just enough. He sat at the end of the table, not in his usual work flannel, but in a stiff dress shirt that didn't quite fit right. His shoulders didn't look defeated, just tired. And when he finally put pen to paper, after 40 years of being the man with the final say, he paused for a long time. Then he signed. Just once. Then again. Then he stood, shook Harold Jensen's hand, and walked out with a cardboard box in one hand, and the Porsche key still in his pocket. The weeks that followed moved fast. We finalized the purchase. Henry officially became regional manager of Central Iowa. Greenscape retained every Voss Outdoor Works employee, offering better benefits, competitive wages, and training packages. For the first time in years, some of the guys who worked under him got paid vacation, and he didn't have to worry about payroll anymore. Meanwhile, my world was growing faster than I imagined. The warehouse we leased, renovated, repainted, repurposed. It became the headquarters of Stratoscope Analytics, our new fintech platform, Noah. My cousin settled into his role as COO with quiet confidence. He brought in young talent from local colleges, people who never thought they'd find careers like this in Des Moines. Liam joined as director of marketing, finally doing what he loved, instead of freelancing from coffee shops. We launched a pilot program to help local service businesses transition into the digital economy. CRM systems, budgeting tools, training modules, all wrapped in a platform powered by my original algorithm. We weren't trying to replace traditional work. We were trying to modernize it, to give people like Henry the tools to survive the future instead of being buried by it. 2 months later, we hosted our official launch event. We invited journalists, investors, community leaders, even competitors. We called it Horizon Day, a nod to the idea that we weren't chasing a finish line, we were building towards something beyond it. That morning I stood backstage reviewing my speech. It was short, deliberate, not a pitch, a promise. As the room filled with nearly 200 people, I scanned the crowd. No Henry. My chest sank just a little. But then in the very back, near the doors, arms crossed, there he was, wearing the same black windbreaker he wore to every city council meeting he ever attended. Expression unreadable, but present. I stepped up to the podium. "Good afternoon," I began. "My name is Caleb Voss. I'm the founder of Stratoscope Analytics. We're proud to be headquartered here in Des Moines. This isn't just a launch for us, it's a return. A return to our roots, to our values, and to the people who made it possible." I paused, scanning the faces, then continued. "Our mission is simple. To make financial technology accessible, understandable, and useful, not just for Wall Street firms, but for small businesses. For the ones that keep our communities alive. For the ones run by people with calloused hands and quiet pride." I clicked the remote. Behind me a screen lit up. Horizon, Local Partnership Program 2M. Invested, Greenscape, Regional Holdings, plus Voss Legacy Division. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Then I said it. "And I'm proud to announce that Mr. Henry Voss, my father, will be heading this initiative as Director of Traditional Industries." Applause erupted. I locked eyes with him for the first time in months. He didn't smile, he didn't nod, but he didn't look away. After the speech, people flooded the stage, shaking hands, asking questions, offering congratulations. I answered what I could, but my eyes kept drifting toward the back. He was gone. I sighed, tried not to let it sting, until I turned the corner near the staff exit and found him waiting, hands in his pockets, leaning against the wall. "You planned this," he said flatly. It wasn't a question. "I planned to build something that mattered," I replied. "The rest just fell into place." He looked around, at the banners, the staff bustling with purpose, the sign with my company's name. "You didn't put your name on the building," he said. "Neither did you," I answered. "But everyone knew who built it." For the first time since I was a kid, his expression softened. Not approval. Recognition. One builder to another. Then slowly, he held out his hand. I took it. Firm, warm, real. As I turned to leave, I said, "The Porsche is yours." He gave me a look. "I already sold it," he muttered. "Bought a new work truck, put the rest into your company's stock." I laughed, genuinely. It was the closest thing to "I'm proud of you" I'd ever get. And it was enough. Later that night, I stood alone in my office. On the desk, a framed article from the Des Moines Business Journal. "Fintech firm. Brings jobs. Hope to traditional industry. Stratoscope Analytics creates 150 new roles in Iowa." The sun dipped low over the river. My reflection overlapped the city's skyline. And for once, I didn't feel like I had something to prove. I just felt steady. Once a week, my father and I now have lunch. Not to catch up, not to heal old wounds, but to talk business. To talk about plumbers who need better booking systems. Electricians who deserve invoicing tools. Masonry crews who get undercut online. They don't need saving, he told me once. They just need to compete. And I listened. Really listened. Because he was right. We'll never be close. Not in the way movies paint reconciliation. But we've found a different rhythm. One built on honesty, not apology. On building forward, not blaming backward. And that, I think, is more lasting than forgiveness. It's respect. In the final part, you'll see how I let go of proving myself and started building something that included all the versions of me I'd once tried to bury. We're not done yet. One more story. Stay with me. 6 months passed, and every day I woke up without the weight of needing to prove myself. Not because the doubts disappeared, they didn't, but because they no longer ruled me. Success, it turns out, isn't a moment. It's a rhythm. A quiet, consistent decision to build, even when no one's watching. And for the first time in years, I was building something bigger than myself. Stratoscope grew faster than any of us predicted. We started with 15 employees, now 72 across 3 states. A second hub was under development in Omaha. Local colleges reached out, asking to partner. We created internship tracks, hosted workshops. Young people, many from the same working-class backgrounds as mine, began seeing futures that didn't require them to leave the Midwest. They could stay, thrive, lead. And we made sure they did. One Friday morning, as I arrived early to the office, I found my father in the conference room. He wasn't on the schedule, didn't have a meeting booked, but there he was writing something on the whiteboard. I stood at the glass wall for a moment watching him. He wrote slowly, deliberately. Then he stepped back and left the marker on the tray. I waited until he left, then stepped in. Across the top of the board, he'd written just 7 words. Remember whose shoulders you're standing on. I stood there a long time, reading it, letting it sink in. And then, without a word, I asked our design team to engrave that phrase into the wall of our lobby. Understated, elegant, permanent. A reminder that no matter how far we went, we never got here alone. I wish I could tell you that everything between us became easy. It didn't. We still argued, still had moments where old habits flared. There were weeks where our lunches were filled with silence or clipped remarks about vendor contracts and project delays. But in between those moments, something new was being built. Not love, not even friendship, but mutual ground. A sense that even if we couldn't agree on how we got here, we could still walk the rest of the path together. Mom, on the other hand, was thriving. She'd finally retired from the public library after 29 years. She and my father took a cooking class in Florence, something she'd dreamed of for decades. I made him learn to roll pasta, she told me over FaceTime, laughing. And I asked. He cursed in Italian by accident, and the chef nearly cried laughing. I smiled. Some victories come quietly. Noah had fully stepped into his COO role. He negotiated vendor contracts better than I ever could, organized teams, introduced wellness benefits I hadn't even thought of. Liam ran our entire communication strategy. His campaign for our small business fintech toolkit went viral on TikTok. We gained 40,000 new users in 3 weeks. And me. I stopped trying to be everywhere, started delegating, sleeping more, listening better. I was learning to lead, not from ego, but from empathy. We launched a new initiative, Stratoscope Traditions, a digital transformation support program for blue-collar industries. Not as charity, but as investment. Electricians, landscapers, HVAC, crews, bricklayers. They didn't need lectures about modernization. They needed bridges, and we built them. Henry became the face of that program. He traveled to job sites, taught seminars, talked to men with rough hands and tired backs, men like himself, about why this wasn't selling out. It was surviving. And they listened. Because he wasn't speaking from theory. He was speaking from loss, from almost losing it all, and choosing not to. One afternoon, as we sat outside a cafe, he turned to me and said something I never expected. You know what I've learned? I raised an eyebrow. Tell me. That building something with your hands, and building something with your mind, they're not enemies. They're just different tools. I stayed quiet. Then he added, but I had to almost lose both, to realize that maybe you were never trying to outdo me. You were trying to bring me with you. I looked down at my coffee, then back up. Yeah, I said, I was. He nodded, didn't say thank you, didn't apologize. And I didn't need him to, because the man sitting across from me wasn't the same man who once called me a boy with an expensive hobby. He had learned, like I had, that legacy doesn't mean refusing to change. It means knowing when to pass the hammer to someone who can finish the house, even if they use different tools. Today, the pickup truck he used to haul mulch in, it sits in the company garage, clean, repainted, and fitted with a digital routing system. The same guys who once feared being replaced by algorithms now use our app to manage schedules, reduce errors, and increase revenue. They earn more, work smarter, spend weekends with their families. And that's success. Real success. We didn't destroy Henry's world. We expanded it. Integrated the past with the future. Combined intuition with insight. Muscle with code. We didn't erase his way. We proved that both ways his and mine could coexist. And be better because of it. The last thing I'll say is this. I used to think revenge would feel like showing up in a Porsche and watching the man who doubted me eat his words. But now I know. Real victory isn't silence. It's not humiliation. It's not even being proven right. It's building something that leaves no one behind, even the ones who never believed in you, especially them. Because in the end, you don't just reclaim your pride, you reclaim your peace. So to everyone out there, maybe you're chasing a dream that no one understands. Maybe your family sees your ambition as arrogance. Maybe your parents think your work isn't real. Keep going anyway. You don't have to crush them to succeed. Sometimes, you just have to outlast the noise. Thank you for listening to this journey. From code and conflict to clarity and connection. This wasn't a revenge story. It was a reclamation. of self, of legacy, of what it means to be seen not for what they wanted you to be, but for what you were becoming all along.